Hey, we're back at it again, talking about anger resolution. We talked about the child within, and I showed this little guy, and talked about all of us in some ways are in areas of our life are younger than our age group. This time, we're going to talk about what does unresolved anger look like. And then we're going to come back and we're going to deal with the child within from explaining arrested in development a little bit better. Because I think it's really important that we know when this younger part of us shows up, how much it's interrupting the older part of us, the more mature part of us. And just so you know, the more mature part of us really should be parenting and taking care of the younger part of us where we haven't developed yet. But what happens is wherever we are immature, wherever we have things that are unresolved and keep us in that pattern where we're not able to grow, that's the part of us that gets, the older part of us gets really annoyed. It's like, shut the younger part up. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see me act that way. I don't want to take me with, I don't want that younger part going to the store with me. I don't want to have to hang out with that younger me. It's embarrassing. It's, that part of me manifests all kinds of different things that I don't like. So this is why we'll get into talking about that. But I'm just going to go over some basics today. And that is, what does unresolved anger look like? Unresolved anger means you didn't solve it yet. The root of it. When we continue to think about or meditate on the situation and our emotions become agitated. When you become agitated just because you thought of something. Now, you've heard me say before, in order to know you have closure on something, we have to look at it like this. Closure means that I can recall the situation, but I don't relive it. If I recall something, or if something gets triggered in me where it's like, oh my goodness, I am actually reliving this. I have the sensation through my whole body. I'm angry about this because anger is a secondary emotion. So your first emotion, you're going to feel something. It's going to be wrapped around whatever is unresolved. And then that's what's going to come up. I think that sometimes people, when they take anger management or if they do happen to take a class on anger resolution, we're looking and we're saying, you know what, just tell me how to resolve it. I just want to know how to stop the anger from taking over. Well, you can't just grab a hold of anger and, put a stop to it. It's feeling what it's feeling for a reason. And so this is where we peel the onion. We take the outside off and get to that inner part where it gets so smelly sometimes, so strong smelling that our eyes water, that we cry peeling this onion. And so that's a lot of times why we don't want to do it. We continue to think about or meditate on something. Sometimes I'll say, do you have any unresolved anger? I'll say that to a person and they'll be like, well, I think I've settled everything. Well, how much do you meditate on this? How often is this coming up in your mind? How much is it there rehearsing itself? Is it in your dreams? A lot of times things that are unresolved, this is, get in our dreams. This is where those dreams where you fall off a building and you can feel yourself falling. It's almost like forever and you're going through all this stuff. Well, that's the feeling of being out of control. You wake up right before you slam on the bottom. It's like that's how out of control you are feeling. Your dreams will then start to reflect the things that are unresolved, or someone's chasing you and you can never get away. I don't like those dreams. But now that I'm older and I understand a little bit more about this, I will look and say, what is going on in my life right now where I feel like something's chasing me and I just can't get away because the thing's running after me and I'm trying to run and everything's in slow motion and it will feel like I can't get away no matter what I do. That's a reflection of what's going on and what you're feeling. If you have any of those things, you have unresolved anger because anger says, I want something to stop. When we get depressed over the situation or we end up feeling hopeless, you come to a point where there is no hope. Hope is a joyful, confident expectation of something good That's what it means in the Greek in the Bible. So you're looking forward to something. Depression, you're looking backwards on something. So remember that if you catch yourself and you say, well, I'm just thinking about this. No, you're looking backwards on the situation and you're rehearsing it too long. And so it's almost like you've invited depression over to your house and say, come on in, we'll sit down, we'll have coffee, we'll rehearse this thing over and over and over. If you have something in your life that you're rehearsing over and over, you have some unresolved anger. So keep that in mind as you're doing the measurement of yourself. When we're restless about a situation, you're pacing, you go to the refrigerator. You ever do this where you go to the refrigerator, you look, nothing's in there. You go to the cupboards, you open all the doors. What I'm looking for, I don't even know what I'm looking for, but it ain't in there. I already know it's not in there. And later on, 10 minutes later, you walk in and look through the whole thing again, like as if suddenly it's going to change. We don't know what we're looking for, but the mind is literally trying to send a signal that says something needs to be resolved here. And we're trying to resolve it with food, or we're trying to resolve it, by snacking or changing the subjects. It's like some people will sit down and they know exactly what they want to watch on TV. People are frustrated and there's something unresolved in them. It's constant movement. They're constant, got that remote and they're popping it every which way, trying to never settle on anything because one thing leads to another thing. I can't watch this. And then we'll go on to the next. And so we have to realize that when stuff has been suppressed in, it's literally begging to be resolved. But if we're restless and we're just wrestling with it and we stay in that restless situation, well, we have unresolved anger. We're not able to resolve it at that point. When we go to sleep without dealing with the situation. Now, let me explain this. The Bible says, do not go to sleep on your anger, or be angry and sin not. But if we go to sleep on our anger, that's more like we're still debating it. We've still invited it. We're still having coffee with everything that we're mad about. We're still rehearsing it. We're still suppressing it, trying to wrestle with it or whatever. Rather than saying, you know what, I can't solve all this tonight. Sometimes I'll say to myself, I can't solve world peace, so I'm not even going to try. But when tomorrow comes, we will deal with this. It's like a way of unhooking your brain and letting your brain know, yeah, I'm actually going to deal with this. I'm just not doing it right now. And Lord, I just ask for forgiveness if I have any wrong attitudes, and I choose to forgive the people involved or whatever the situation was. And now I'm looking just to have a good night's sleep so I can get up tomorrow and resolve it. In that sense, you did resolve it before you went to bed. In that sense, you did do something with it. But, those angry times where you turn your back to your husband or the guy turns his back to his wife or whatever. And it's just the feeling like we're not talking about it. And then you try to go to sleep on that. That's a bad situation. The Bible says not to do that. The Diabolus will show up. And when he does, it's the demonic realm showing up. And then you're going to even have more thoughts to entertain. It's going to be like, you know what? He has never loved me. It'll be paranoid stuff will start happening. And your own mind, your subconscious, in order to protect itself, will come up with some pretty witty, stupid stuff. I'll just say it that way. But it can be very convincing because you're feeling it in your body. You're feeling it as a person. You're feeling some other core thought than anger. You're feeling abandoned. You're feeling the fear of abandonment. You're feeling like lost. You're feeling like you've been left behind on something, ignored, not heard. There's so many different things that are feeling. And remember, first you feel it, and then you get angry about it. So anger is a secondary emotion. We can't just grab anger and shut it down. Like, get down here, you're not doing this anymore. We'd have to suppress the underlying feelings. And it's too late. We actually already feel what we feel. So we can't pretend that we're not feeling it. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Also, if you have like a bitter envy towards someone, the Bible talks about that. It's, there's a little kid's book that calls it The Green Monster, where you feel hurt, but then when you're looking at the people that you're dealing with, there's a bitter feeling, just like, you eat something bitter and it makes you go, your whole facial expression changes. It's not something you look forward to, like, I need bitter, It'd be better to not be bitter and be better. But in order to be better, we have to recognize, I actually have some feelings of jealousy and envy, and I'm holding a grudge. I really don't want to let this go. Now, holding a grudge, you can also do, and I've used my phone as an example, if this was a grudge, for me to hold on to it, I'm literally saying, you can't have my grudge and what I'm mad about. You can't have my bitter thought. I'm not talking about it. I'm not giving it up. I'm holding a grudge. And so that's a deeper level of what's manifested out of bitterness. And we don't want to do that either. So these are all just things where you can say, if you say, no, I don't think I have any anger to resolve. Well, if you got any of these characteristics, there's some unresolved anger there. Bitter envy is especially an intense thing to have to deal with. When you have any feelings of being spiteful or revengeful, and how you can tell is your mind will think first how to defend yourself. It'll say, well, if they say that to me again, then I'm going to say, some people lay up all night thinking about what they're going to say if someone says something or does something. And you know what? The more you think about it, that person never does the thing that you have all planned out, your answer and everything. It just doesn't work out. And so here we are. To feel revengeful, though, or spiteful is you're rehearsing the thing you're bitter about. And now it's gone to a level of like, I'm going to get them back on this. If they say this, I'm still going to hurt them by saying this. And it's more of a one-upping. It's more of, I'm in pain, so you're going to feel my pain. And I want you to feel it strongly. It's a revenge. And of course, the Bible says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I mean, it doesn't even belong to us to use vengeance in anything. If something needs to be dealt with, someone needs to be wrangled in, God will take care of that. That's not our deal. Our deal is to do the righteous thing. Our deal is to do the right thing in the right time, no matter what that other person does. Ugh, that's hard, but that requires maturity and growth. So we may just feel short-tempered or irritable. Sometimes people who are short-tempered have blood sugar issues. Sometimes there's food allergies involved. Sometimes you don't even know why you're angry about something, or you're crying about something, or you're hurting about something. And one day you'll feel that and the next day you don't. Sometimes that's very physiological. A person who's in a lot of physical pain will also make it harder for us to walk through emotional pains. And so knowing that is one thing, and giving yourself some grace on that. Try not to be short-tempered, but at the same time, short-tempered means that you don't have much elasticity. You can't stretch on this thing. You can't hold for very long. And a sound, a noise, something being in the wrong spot or whatever, you blow. And God is long-suffering. God can sit in situations with a person and us be all wrong and upside down, but he doesn't get a temper over it. And so it takes the love of God and who he is to show us how to even do that. So cussing, of course, is a sign of just either a bad habit, but most of the time the root of it is underlying anger, even if you're cussing to create a protective barrier. Now, cussing is that thing that is, to the average person, gets uncomfortable around somebody who's cussing. But it's a way of kind of shocking the atmosphere so that everybody knows you're in control. Well, that's not right? That's not cool. That's not, if I got to come in throwing F-bombs so that you listen to me, that's trouble already waiting to happen. But that means there's an underlying thing. Well, you can say, well, my whole family cusses, so I don't really mean anything by it. Well, there's some type of base it came out of, and I bet you if you dig into it, and if you took it away, so you said all day today, I'm not going to cuss, you'd find the base of where this is coming out of, because it is so much a part of your language. And or it wasn't a part of your language. You stub your toe and suddenly it's a part of your language. And that's going to come out. There's actually a filtered area in the brain that's supposed to be able to help you filter those thoughts, but it has to be developed. And if it's not, or if there's drugs, alcohol, porn, too much being on a computer, anything that has an addictive base to it, it's harder for people who suffer all those things to control what comes out their mouth. You have to practice that. And it's just, it'll become very flippant and it'll come out, but it's still underlying anger. If you start ignoring people, like I don't really need to spend time with them. I don't care about that person anymore. I don't even want to talk to them. Any of those things says you have unresolved anger. See, today we're just talking about this so we can measure ourselves. Because the first thing that happens when you dig into anger, most people, or maturity or some of the other subjects, most people don't want to be accused of being angry or accuse themselves of being angry. So we get deflective when we're like, no, I don't think I am. I do good. I'm pretty kind to people, and we'll start making excuses rather than just taking a good look at ourselves and going, where's that area that really ticks me off? And how short is my fuse when it comes to those areas? It's interesting. Some people cannot handle the sound of children playing or crying babies. Now, I don't think we're just born like that. Now, you may have a physiological thing that just feels like the sound is coming at your ears. Like sometimes people with insulin resistance and things like that will have moments where it's like, it's just way too loud in here, when really it's not very loud at all, but that's how they hear it. There'll be that. But if you just regularly are like, I just can't do all this, it's connected to something, and we should get to the bottom of that. We should be digging through and finding out, what is the core of that? That's not a normal thing. That's not a healthy thing. So either there's something physiologically wrong, or it's tied to some type of memory where too much action makes us feel like someone's going to yell. Too much action will make us feel like we can't control the situation. There's some things like that, as you dig into it, God will show you. You'll be like, I think it comes from this. Or your nervous system may literally need to be healed. That too much, like there was a person who worked in Menards and they worked in the lighting section. And so you have all those fluorescent lights and things hanging from the ceiling. Well, when they went to a specialist to get checked for something else, they said the way they absorbed water was totally off. Isn't this interesting? And so it's like, well, do you drink a lot of water? And the person said, absolutely, I drink a ton of water. Well, when they dug into it, they found out it was from being under the fluorescent lights 40 hours a week or more. And so many of them, because they worked in that section or whatever, it threw off how their body absorbed water, how it processed water, and it threw up because you're really underneath all this electrical wave. You're underneath the lights, and your body receives that. And it was different than what the cell's normal molecular energy looks like. And so all of a sudden, here's all these lights, here's all this stuff, and now we got a problem. And so it's not absorbing. Well, you drink a lot of water, but your brain says, hey, I think we're dying because I don't feel the water in the body. I'm not registering this or whatever. You will be overstimulated really easy by noises and things like that. And it'll be a problem where you're like, I just don't know why I keep losing my temper. So think about what we're saying. You say a person has a bad temper. We talked about that. That means like they got a bad mix. The people around them showed them things as they were growing up. That was a bad mix. They've appropriated a bad mix. But to look at it where you lost your temper, that means your temper was set at a certain thing. And it's like, I've always been set there and I'm pretty good. I mean, it takes a lot to make me mad. But I don't know, out of nowhere, I just lost my temper. That means you lost the level that you were at, your tolerance. And there was a man that worked in a furniture factory. He had gotten a job, and after a year of working there, he was cussing and swearing at his wife and had all kinds of behaviors she'd never seen before. So, long story short, through some things, she ended up taking him to a SPECT scan doctor. And when they looked at his brain, they didn't tell him the results right away, but asked him questions like, what do you do for a living? And, asked all the questions around what he does for a living. Well, when he works in this factory, he's in the section of where they're building furniture, but the furniture they're building, he's the one who puts the lacquer on, right? You're not supposed to be in a room with that many fumes coming at you, and it was not well ventilated. So basically, the doctor showed him a SPECT scan of his brain and said, you see this brain? This is a huffer's brain. And they said, well, I don't huff. And he said, this is actually your brain. And this is what's going on. So he wrote a doctor's note to him to be moved to a different place in the factory, do a different job or whatever. And it took almost a year, but his wife said all the poor behaviors left because he was losing his temper and there was something else affecting it. For those of you who suffer a brain injury, we'll think that happened 5 years ago. Okay, well, it happened 5 years ago, but it's affecting you still today. Most brain injuries take at least 2 years for the brain to recover to any degree. Your brain is very much like soft butter or tofu. So if you even touch the brain, just like if you touch butter, it will sink in that area and you don't even have to put much pressure to it. So a brain injury is something that is going to take a little bit of wiring time for you to recover from that very thing that happened to you. So I'm bringing this up because maybe we haven't realized, we can't blame everything on that, right? Because we're 100% responsible for our behaviors. But when we're giving it our best shot to keep our temperament at a certain thing and be loving and all those different things, and just all of a sudden, we just feel like the world is after us or, screaming at us, and then we respond like we're being screamed at. There's a very physiological thing that's probably there. Sometimes when we fall off something when we're a kid, we hit our head, we think, oh, that was years ago. But if you SPECT scan the brain, if there was a significant injury, it'll still look dark in that area. It'll still not be firing white in that area. And so that's very frustrating to the brain. We had a few children over the years. We did foster care and we did high therapeutic foster care for a long time, and had many children come through our house. And one of the young ladies, I would sit down, she was probably 13. I would sit down and do math with her at night, and she couldn't get it. And finally she got it. She's like, I got it. I understand it. And she'd do a whole page of math and she was so excited about it or whatever. But that's not what was happening in school. In school, she was crying. She was getting very frustrated and, cussing at the teacher and doing different things like that. But she got it. And I thought, yay, we just have such victory. The next day when she went to school, she could not remember any of what she got the day before. Well, I'd taken her to a specialist. Her mom was a heroin addict while carrying her in utero. And so she was affected by the heroin. And what happens is heroin babies many times will have what they say like Swiss cheese brain, which means your components are firing, but there'll be a hole and you'll get something firing over here, but it won't cross over to the other side to be retained or to continue on. So then you have to learn the thing all over again. How frustrating would that be? I cried over that one. I felt so bad for her because she was giving it her best shot and excited when she finally accomplished, but couldn't remember a thing the next day. Trauma can do that to the brain. See, heroin traumatized the brain, but trauma like being yelled at and screamed at and constant fear of, saving your life or even living life in a certain situation, that's going to be a problem. and it changes the cortisol levels. It changes the epinephrine in the brain, which we've talked about. And then what happens is it gives you brain damage. And a lot of times you'll have anything from dyslexia up here to Tourette's to all kinds of stuff. Sometimes doctors don't deal with that. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they just keep it general. No, that it's not caused by any of that. But we see it over and over. If you heal the emotion, the rest follows. So this is why digging in and finding out what's our first emotion. Well, as soon as you figure out, I guess I feel rejected. That's why I'm so mad, which is the secondary emotion. Okay, but then we can't stop peeling the onion there. It's why. Why do I feel rejected? Where? Where did this come from? What memory is this attached to? God, show me my heart. And sometimes it'll take a few days, a month even. And as you're bringing this before God and you're mulling it over, we're not trying to be an archaeologist and dig up every little thing. It'll just naturally come to you where you're like, oh, that's why I was so angry. Well, anger is the secondary emotion, but really the thing we're talking about to resolve this is all the emotions before, all the memory that happens before. You healed that, there's no reason for the red flag to come up and say, I want something to stop. There'll just be no reason for that. So, a higher level of anger, you're going to see stubbornness, or you're going to see the rebel lion show up, like the movie Lion King. You had the bad guy that was Scar. He's the rebel lion, and which is rebellion. And he was going against authority. It's just like trying to find a way to get in trouble, trying to literally, I think sometimes people go into rebellion and to stubbornness because it's a way of acting out. I got to get this out of me. Anger has a voice. It must be heard. It's either going to lash out on other people or it's lashing out on yourself. And after a while, you just get stubborn. You get rebellious because you're going to find a way to get it out. I remember clearly breaking windows in a like a warehouse building. And I think back at that now with my adult brain and it says, well, that was pretty stupid. Why did I need to do that? Oh, but we were having fun. That's fun, destruction of property. But the reason that it was fun to me is I had so much pent up anger, so many things that were unresolved, that this was like my volcanic reaction where I could blow off steam. I could get that, just, break the window out or whatever. And I got away with it. And there was just like the sneaky rebellious feeling. Well, really, that's an anger problem, which goes back to a I wasn't heard problem, which went back to abandonment problems, which went back to rebellion coming out of that, right? And so you can see that if you peel the onion, you track yourself, it'll run deep. It'll run real deep. Sometimes people who've been with God and had conversations with God and just been in his presence and worshiped him and all that, something happens to you and you back off on that. And really the anger then comes from a feeling of abandonment. Although he never leaves us or forsakes us, the hard concept is we left him. That's the hard concept of it. And we're lacking something spiritually. We're hungry for God and we're not getting fed. When you're hungry for God and you're not getting fed, that's already going to cause some first emotions. And you're just going to get angry easier. Now think about, I've only said a few of these. Think about if you just combine some of them together. You could get lethal just over some of the things that I've said. There's going to be some stuff that will be lethal because there's that combination and it's just too much emotion. I'll go over another one, and that is memories. When we relive memories, like I said, whatever you relive, you don't have that closed out. You don't have it unpacked. You don't have it put away. You don't have it sorted. But if I rehearse something in my brain or I have a memory that comes up and I don't relive it, I mean, I had some really intense stuff happen to me, and after God healed me, I literally can tell you I was raped and incested and different things like this, okay? I can say that like I say the sky is blue. I actually don't have a bunch of emotion with it because I'm not reliving the thought. I'm actually healed, right? But I knew when I shared with a counselor, I shared with people to begin with, when I shared with a pastor, oh my goodness, I couldn't cry hard enough. I just felt like my insides were going to come right out my throat. And it was like, oh, it's like you just vomited out. And then you think you got it all out. And then you're almost emotionally in drive heaves for a long time. And as you take the thing apart and face it and God heals, well, then that changes everything. Now I can recall it, but I don't relive it. See, the key is to be able to remember something and not relive it. Not to the degree that it like takes over who you are and your ability to go to work and things like that. So when we have those memories that do that, we don't have closure. Naturally, it's going to make us mad. And sometimes we're mad at everybody and their dog, but a lot of times we're just mad at ourselves. And it can look like, I'm mad because I can't hardly get out of bed and I'm always tired. And what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Over and over we'll say. That's what comes out of that because something's not resolved. God wants to bring us through a place of resolve, but we have to peel the onion. We cannot just sit on the outside. Like if I had an onion sitting here right now and I just had it on this table and it was one of these things where it was like, well, there it is. There's an onion. You probably wouldn't even know it's present unless I pointed it out because it's got the little brown shell stuff on the outside. And you peel that back, you smell a little bit more of the onion. You peel the next layer or whatever and sit that on the desk. The room is starting to fill up with the sensation of an onion. You cut it to the core and there's that strong, somebody can walk in the door and go, whoa, it smells like onions in here. Well, that's the way it is emotionally. When you start digging into this, you start getting closer to the core. Sometimes I've cut up an onion and I did fine. I was like, I'm going to make it through this onion. And as soon as I got near the core, it was like, whoa, my eyes, I'm crying. I'm leaning back. I'm trying to escape the onion while cutting it. And finally, I just have to disengage and walk off because I can't see. I can't see what I'm doing and I'll hurt myself. Well, that is exactly what it looks like to peel the onion of emotions because your soul is going through your filing cabinet and it's recognizing these things are not resolved. I haven't asked forgiveness. I haven't given forgiveness. I haven't addressed it. I've only suppressed it. There's things like that we have to realize that we have to bring these things forward. And sometimes it's going to just make us cry. And we might even have to leave the room for a little bit and come back to deal with it. So the other thing that leaves us in unresolved anger is distrust. And distrust is your approach toward a person or negative conclusions that you've come up with from people who have hurt you. You can have this about yourself. I have a lot of negative conclusions about myself. I can't trust me. I said I wasn't going to eat but one cookie and I ate the whole thing, or whatever it is. You've proven to yourself that you can't trust you. And once that happens, then we have to have someone higher than who we are that we can put our trust in. Somebody who's immovable, somebody who's the same yesterday, today, and forever. I can't actually say that about myself, that I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. That my temperament's always just in this certain zone or any of those things. Only God is like that. So it would make sense that he would be our post. Remember I said the person who's post in your life is the person who's steady. And if you're over here popping off, your emotions are what you're really looking for is a post to tie yourself to. Now you can do that and become codependent on a person, but we're supposed to come and just like a horse, you're being drawn and you're tied to that post that gives you that security of like, here's where I'm supposed to be right now. And the person whose post is always very level. You don't tie yourself to somebody who's as wound up as you are. That's dangerous. You're looking for someone with the peace of God that passes all understanding. He keeps our heart and our mind in Christ Jesus, in the Anointed One and His anointing. The anointing breaks every yoke of bondage, so that would make sense that we would want to be tied to Him. But anyone who reflects Christ, like, for instance, a very godly husband, and I'm not talking about a religious husband, I'm talking about someone who knows the peace of God, the shalom, the nothing lacking, nothing broken, nothing wanting peace of God. And, many times a woman will be crying, or a woman, a wife will be exasperated. There'll be all these feelings of like, I don't know what to do at work. Don't give her a speech and tell her what to do. Don't try to hand her a tool to, here, go do this and this and this. And really what she needs at that point is a hug. And she needs that kind of hug that's just safe and be that post for her and that she can be tied to. And it will regroup her emotions and it'll regulate her. Because see, when we're all out of sorts, we're dysregulated. And dysregulation is a real thing. And it's a hard thing. And sometimes we're trying to regulate ourselves. I'll get with God and be like, God, I just need the pureness of who you are right now. I'm dysregulated. And I'll spend time with him and he'll regulate me. Other times I'll just tell my husband, because don't do the guessing game with your husband where you're like, he should know how I feel. He's not a mind reader. He's not a Jedi. So if you put that expectation on him, you're wrong. You're going to have an unmet expectation. So don't do that. Tell him exactly what you need. You know what? I got all this going on and I want you to know about it. But what I really need right now is to be held by you. So you're asking him to just come and be a post. No speeches, no nothing, just hold me. And when a guy knows that's the thing you need, he'll give that to you. But if he's reaching for a toolbox trying to fix whatever it is, he might use a wrench when really something else is needed, and that'll just frustrate you. As a woman, tell him exactly what you need. And men, tell your wives what you need. It's a concept, though, we've learned on TV that, the romantic man, the one who just loves you so much or whatever, they just always know everything that you feel. Well, that's scary because I don't know anybody like that. They might have guessed it. They might see that you're hurting. They might adjust or whatever. That's great. But a lot of times guys especially need to know, what are you needing right now? And even if you say, I actually don't know what I need, but I could use a hug. Because they've proven that even when, like you'll take a baby, put the baby on your shoulder, and where are you tapping them? Between their shoulder blades. That's where the heart on the backside is. You're actually helping to regulate their heart. So this is why when they're fussing, don't do this on them, because you just went to the level that they're at. Bring it back down to, shh, it's okay. I got you. Shh. You're the post. You're the person who's regulating them. They're not regulating you. You're the even when they're all over the charts. And so if you're going to help somebody, sometimes you don't have to know how to solve world peace. You just need to be steady. And if we've had experiences where we didn't have that, then that makes us feel like we can't trust our atmosphere, our surroundings, ourself, because we don't know how to get back to a steady line or something that's sure. That's anxiety at its finest. That's when panic attacks start kicking in, because literally your system is going, I have no place to ground me. I'm ramping. And it'll just keep going. It'll keep going until something snaps and then you fall and you face plant. And then you're so embarrassed that you fell apart and it's so scary and you never want it to happen again. Well, we have to get our relationship established with God so he can be that area of regulation for us. And, husbands and wives and fathers and mothers and just caretakers of all sort, we need to know how to help people regulate in peace. And just be there. Don't try to be God, because you're not. Don't try to be the superhero, because none of us are. We're just regulating and we're bringing peace. These are some of the things, and I didn't name them all, but if you were like, no, I don't think I have unresolved anger, these are some of the characteristics of things that will let you know, my friend, it is there. We're not at peace. And Amplified says this, that anxiety brings agitating passions. And so sometimes addictions and self-medicating and jumping from one relationship to the next really is us trying to regulate ourselves. And there's nobody there to be the steady heartbeat. And we can't suck the life out of people. But God tells us, come boldly before my throne in your hour of need. Come boldly before my throne. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's love. And get it out. Talk to him and know that he will never leave you nor forsake you. And sometimes he gets the blame or has the blame for when we left. And we act like it was him that left, when really we stepped out. And so reestablish that relationship. Come to him, just say, God, I need you in my life. I need you to stand post, and I'll come tie myself to you so that I can be regulated.